Okay. I This is going to be part three of differences with Catholics. So I want to mention Protestants too. I feel like when I say differences with Catholics, it's almost like I'm attack. I have no attack for them. Remember, for the first 1,000 years of the church, there was only one church, so they have a common ancestry with us too. Also, I noticed I went back and looked at my video just to see where I had left off, and I realized it was shaking a lot. I'm like, man, I don't want to do that to my viewers, piss people off because it's really shaking. Um, so I set it up on a different table, so I'm a little farther away from it, as you might know or notice. Yeah, so I just wanted to continue on this idea, or these ideas, main ideas. Now, if you see that there's no structure to the church, as the Roman Catholic Church, it's kind of everything happens, organically, and the the fact that the whole operation of the church is only to maintain what has been given to you beforehand, uh, which is basically the functional part of it. But you have to realize why this is. Now, I'll get to theosis and our idea of the afterlife more. But I just first want to impress upon you the idea of imagine if you believed heaven itself, the total realm of heaven, in its truest nature, came down and was embodied in a human being, born like us. That would have to be the strangest event in the world. You'd have to look at that and be like, that's odd. That's stranger than space aliens or time travel or even somebody from another dimension coming to ours. I mean, it's as odd as the Big Bang, or even more so. Um, if this happening occurred, and as you can if you read the Gospels, there's a very strange thing that happens. And, this Protestant way of the Master is very strange, um, which is a TV show by Kirk Cameron and Ray Comfort, where they say, this is how Jesus did things. You need to bring people to realize that they're sinful and then offer them salvation in Christ and that's how you do it. And that's how Jesus. No. If you read the Gospels, you see people, Gentiles, crowds, people coming in by night, people wanting to be by him, but having fear, oh, I'm too sinful. People, sick people just wanting to touch him. And in the Gospel of Mark, the most primitive and the oldest one, and in my view, the most accurate, a woman touches him, says he felt his power go out, which, who touched me? And he got angry and felt, it's got this really personal touch to it. I mean, this is how people would react if somebody who was heaven incarnate, people from around are just coming, seeing what is this, it would frustrate the whole superstructure of reality and of all the governments and everything. And this is exactly what we see in the Bible. It's just people, just, running to him, which is the, I guess I'd say, the desired effect. I mean, that's what hopefully we all run to him like that. But the church only wanted to preserve that part of it, what the apostles had taught them how to do, and it just moved on from there. There was no adding on, or that's why the Catholic Church is really the first Protestant church, because when they broke from the Orthodox Church, they started. You notice that they don't have 7 councils; they have something like 21, and you have to realize that that's a very strange thing. For the first 1,000 years, there was only 8 councils, and then the next 1,000 years, that grows to 21. There's 16 councils within the that's a lot. The Lateran councils, the this, the that, the Vatican council. really ridiculous things because they keep adding and improving. And how could, and the Vatican councils were a response to Protestantism. The second one, how can we be more? Let's strip everything down. No, the whole point was to preserve. You know, people ask, why is it done? Why aren't it female priests? Have there ever been female priests? No. Well, we're not going to add anything. It's not. It's not an organization that can sit. Oh, how can we make this better? How can we improve? No, we're only doing what's done before. And there's even processes that they would wave a sheet up and down uh, where the communion bread and wine was, and that was primarily to keep the flies away. Now there's a whole theology to that. Of it's the the spirit hovering over it like it hovers over the waters. So even the things that were added in, I wouldn't say accidentally, but incidentally, now have theology to them, which is it's a very mystical idea. We don't laugh and say, "Oh, I mean, our icons is the same iconography of ancient Rome. Why do angels have wings?" Well, it's because the messenger gods, like Mercury, in Roman iconography, that's how they were depicted. It was a way to show it to the people, and now we still have that. I mean, a lot of the Virgin with Child, that icon is very very similar to Isis with Child. It's not we're not using the pagan imagery, but a lot of the style, just as if you invented a religion today, it would have that same style. Look at Dianetics. It has a very 50s look at the world because it started in the 50s. So that has a big difference on the difference of how the outward religiosity of it is. Now, if you have a starting point of no original sin, people aren't born personally guilty as they are in the West. Um, because and that the incarnation is the most important point. These Western Christians, especially the Protestants, have this idea that when Christ was going to the cross, they were cheering him on, like, yeah, sin's going to get paid for. Whenever I heard that story, I became very angry. I'm like, if I was there, I'd take a gun, kill all those, or I'm take them off the cross, because a real death is happening here. They act like it's some story, and I wonder if they take it for real. I just want to mention that. Now, if you believe that God became man so that we may become God, you believe heaven and hell are the same place, you have no original sin. Just from those starting points, everything, the outlook of the world, is going to be drastically different. That's why people may say, and I don't even understand when people say, oh, well, Roman Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy look the same. I mean, maybe in some Greek churches where they've toned it down a lot and tried to become Americanized. But if you actually go into an old-style church, nothing's the same. There's a theology, or I guess an interpretation that started in the West that says the thing is, I tell you, it would be easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get heaven. It's a parable. It's a saying by Christ, and they came up with this idea. Oh well, the eye of a needle was this curved thing with a big hole in it, and you lashed your mules or whatever to it, or your camels, and the only way it could get through if it was on its knees. No, that's not what it is. That's people trying to make waves so they can have these millions of dollars and see everybody in poverty and say, "Oh, but I'm prayerful. Since I'm so humble, I can I can live in obnoxious luxury while others suffer, and I don't have to fast or do anything like that. Since I'm enlightened, I can be rich and greedy." No. Many people take that as it would be easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. That camels can't go through eyes of needles, and people who live like that can't get into heaven. Well, in the Aramaic, in the Syriac text, it says a rope. It would be easier for a rope to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. Now, that doesn't have a hell of a lot of that doesn't have any theological difference from those who say no, camels can't go through eyes of needles. But it really puts a kibosh on the idea of these Protestants with this health and wealth prosperity gospel. It shuts them down, and it really brings it home, and that's the Orthodox understanding of it, because the word for camel and rope were just a line. So there was a mistranslation there. Didn't change the meaning, but it turns out that the Protestants forced a change. And now there can be no debate about it, because we actually have the real word that's supposed to be there, which is rope and not camel. And how much would you change a Protestant or a Roman Catholic if you said there's no original sin? At least the first 10 chapters of the book of Genesis were prophecy and parable and not literal. That heaven and hell are the same place, and that and I don't think I've touched on this. We don't have a view that the majority of people are going to hell. They're probably going to heaven. We can't speak on it, but many of the church fathers see sorry, those are my dogs barking, if you can hear them. That the majority of mankind will reach paradise, will meet Christ at some point. And then some of the church fathers actually had an idea of universalism, that everyone will eventually get saved, that you may spend some period of time in a form of purgatory, but that eventually the light would come to you, and you would realize, and from that hell you gain knowledge into heaven, because the idea of useless suffering, a God making people uselessly suffer, is ridiculous. And there's an Apocalypse of St. Peter that the Ethiopian Orthodox use, where it has all these graphic depictions of hell, and homosexuals being this, and fornicators will be hung by this, and mud, and all horrible descriptions of people. And St. Peter goes to God, how can you allow all this pain and suffering and be good? How can this go on for eternity? And Christ whispers to him, shh, everybody will get out of hell eventually, but don't tell anybody, or else they'll act wickedly. Now, of course, my church doesn't accept this. We see this as kind of a foolish thing. This is Gnostic, the idea that he pulled somebody aside and told special secret things to and didn't reveal it to the whole church. Then you would actually have a real precedent for a pope. You'd have some secrecy up there around, Vatican Hill, and then then they'd be the ruling ones telling you, no, that's not how we view things. But the drastic impact that these basic fundamental ideas have on your outlook, on the way you treat other people, on the way you view your fellow man, on the way you view yourself, and on why you're going to change and how you're going to be a better person, are drastic. They may not seem like that if you're just saying, oh, this and that. I mean, if there are side notes of like, oh, we do our communion with the bread and wine mix, where they do theirs just the communion way, for they have intinction, or we have concomitants, or we have, no. I mean, those things are peripheral. But the core things, it makes a drastic difference. And I just started talking in this video. I haven't even gotten to my main points yet, and it's already 14 minutes. Oh my God, I'm gonna have to make another one of these, because just when I get started, it's already 14 minutes and 15 seconds now. All right, peace. I'm gonna make the fourth one right after this. So just wait about a half hour, it'll be up.